What exactly is behind HYBE's decision? Why is Taehyung suddenly silent after revealing Jungkook and Jimin's secret activities in America? Is HYBE pressuring Taehyung? Or is there something bigger hiding from the army? Do you really know what's really going on behind Taehyung's calm smile these days? Is his cold expression in front of the camera just a mirror image? Or is it a form of silent resistance to unfair decisions? What if all this time we only see the surface of an iceberg that is slowly melting? What if Taehyung, the BTS visual, who is known to be the most calm and full of self-control, finally reaches a point where he can no longer bear the disappointment he has kept to himself? The question now: why did HYBE suddenly cancel the dream duet between Taehyung and Jungkook? And why was the position actually given to Jimin without clear notice? Even more disturbing, why is it that after spreading shocking leaks about Jungkook and Jimin's secret activities in America, Taehyung is suddenly silent, as if something or someone is forcing him to hold back his voice? The story doesn't start with the camera. This started long before fans realized there was something strange in the dynamics of three friends who had always seemed inseparable: Jungkook, Jimin, and Taehyung. A big project that was supposed to be an iconic moment actually turned into an emotional abyss for one of the members. According to an internal source who declined to be named, Taehyung and Jungkook have actually set up an exclusive duet project for a comeback special ahead of Jin's return from military service. The song is already in the final stages of mastering. However, just a few weeks before the official release schedule, HYBE unilaterally decided to cancel the collaboration without a satisfactory reason, and this is where all the strangeness begins. HYBE announced that it was Jimin who would duet with Jungkook in a major project set to premiere in the United States. This moment was supposed to be a celebration of the collaboration of soulmates between two members who are both loved by the international public. But unfortunately, this decision is not only surprising, but also painful for Taehyung. In several posts and interactions with the army, Taehyung has provided codes that only those who really know him understand. Sometimes silence is not because you don't know, but because you can't talk. This sentence appeared on his Weverse just a day after the announcement of Jungkook and Jimin's collaboration. Is this just a coincidence? Or a signal that he wants to convey to the fans that something is not right? But what was really surprising was Taehyung's next move, and his brief, abrupt live session which lasted less than 5 minutes. Taehyung mentioned a location in Los Angeles, where Jimin and Jungkook were reportedly secretly recording. And in that rare moment, his facial expression changed. He bit his lip, stared at the camera for a moment, then turned off the broadcast abruptly. Army who witnessed the live suddenly gidger. Is that a form of disappointment? Or is Taehyung deliberately signaling that he knows something he shouldn't? And if so, how did he find out about the secret activities? A few days later, social media was flooded with rumors that HYBE was in the middle of an internal emergency. Anonymous sources began to leak that Taehyung had received an official warning from management not to discuss canceled duet projects or other members' secret activities, especially if it concerned the company's strategic affairs abroad. However, doesn't this only strengthen the suspicion that something serious is being hidden? HYBE himself did not give a direct clarification. They only mentioned that scheduled changes are part of the promotion strategy. However, how can promotions actually be run at the expense of emotional relationships between members? Is the value of the bond really replaceable just because of numbers and market strategies? Fans began comparing Taehyung and Jungkook's interactions after the decision was announced. During one of the most recent music shows, Taehyung's blank stare when Jungkook mentioned Jimin's name as his duet partner was clearly recorded. A forced smile, a retracted hand gesture, those little moments that the camera cannot lie to. And then an even more surprising thing happened. Taehyung disappeared from the public radar for a whole week.
No updates.
No posts. There is no interaction on any platform. The army began to wonder, is this a form of silent protest? Or has the pressure from management really made him choose to stay away for a while? But when he came back, what happened made everything even more confusing. Taehyung appeared in an exclusive interview, looking calm, even too calm. There was no explicit statement on the previous issue, no clarification. He only said one sentence, which is now the subject of great discussion among fans. Everyone has a reason why they are silent and why they choose to speak. This sentence, although it sounds simple, carries a heavy burden. Is this a form of surrender? Or the most subtle form of resistance to a system that has failed him? Some ARMY attributed this statement to the fact that Taehyung was previously known to be the most sensitive to injustice among the members. He's not the frontal type, but he's also not the type who can stay still forever, and the suspicion grew stronger when Taehyung was caught meeting with one of the independent producers in New York, a person known to have close ties to the off-the-record projects of several Korean artists who wanted to get out of the agency's pressure. This Taehyung's first step toward freeing himself from a system that he considers to have suppressed his creativity and the integrity of his friendships. Meanwhile, Jungkook and Jimin continue to promote their duet, but the awkwardness continues to emerge. In several interviews, when asked about possible collaborations with other members, Jimin only briefly replied, "It all depends on the agency." A very controlled-sounding answer, while Jungkook, in one moment, when mentioning Taehyung's name, suddenly silent and chuckled without continuing his answer. ARMY also began to read that perhaps, secretly, he also felt uncomfortable with the decisions taken on their behalf. If so, who is really responsible? And what was the main motive behind the cancellation of Taehyung and Jungkook's duet? More than just a musical project, it is about mutual trust. About how management can sacrifice one's emotions for commercial purposes. About how relationships built over the years can crack just because of one unilateral decision. Taehyung hasn't spoken since the interview. However, the look in his eyes in every appearance said more than words, and we, as fans, have the right to ask, does HYBE really listen to the voices of their artists? Or is pressure and image more important than the painful truth? One thing is certain, Taehyung's silence is not the end. This is the beginning of something bigger. Something that will probably change everything if he finally chooses not to be silent anymore. But behind all these questions, a moment emerged that began to become a hot topic in the international ARMY community. A short 17-second recording of the practice room video, which was never officially released, suddenly circulated on an anonymous platform showing Jungkook and Taehyung standing face-to-face in a practice setting, but without sound. From the body gestures, the two looked like they were arguing. Taehyung folded his arms across his chest. Jungkook pointed towards the mirror with an expression full of emotion. And then, a small gesture that breaks things up. Taehyung takes a step back, shakes his head slowly, then leaves the room. Was it the actual conflict that had been covered up? Or is it just a wild interpretation of a video cut without context? But how is it possible that such dramatic training footage was never released on official channels as usual? All this again adds to the long list of mysteries that have not yet been revealed. Fans who have been following BTS for a long time know very well how Taehyung and Jungkook's closeness is built very naturally. Since their debut, they have always appeared like inseparable brothers. Even in old documentaries, their relationship is described as full of jokes, supporting each other behind the scenes, and having a chemistry that is difficult to imitate. So when all of that is suddenly gone, it's hard not to feel lost. It's hard not to wonder who separated them. One of the most painful parts of this narrative takes place during the final comeback, when they are both present at the group interview. There was a moment when the interviewer asked each member who gave the most encouragement during the recording process. Jungkook replied with such diplomatic lines, "All of you are very supportive." But when asked who calmed him down the most, he fell silent. "Old," she said, "time with my family has been really important lately." Many fans noticed that when the sentence came out, the camera had panned towards Taehyung, who was staring at the table, not the camera, and was seen biting his lower lip. A small, but very deep reaction, as if there was something to say but could not. Is that a wound? Or a sense of disappointment that has not been conveyed? It has also been suggested that HYBE used Jungkook's personal busyness narrative to close a gap that actually had to do with emotional conflict. Visiting family sounds normal and natural. But if it's true that the breakup happened because of psychological pressure, what about Jungkook's mental state all this time? And why didn't HYBE explain transparently to the public who had been so loyal? Some ARMYs even dig deeper into old vlogs and find that there is a very strange pattern. Usually whenever one of the member. Perhaps most heart-wrenching, however, was Jin's indirect statement on a variety show that aired before he returned to the military. When asked by the host about how the relationship between BTS members is during the group's activity break, Jin replied in a meaningful tone, "There are things we can't share, even with ourselves." What does that phrase mean? Does Jin indirectly know something bigger about the emotional state between Jungkook and Taehyung? And why did he choose to convey it in such a closed and mysterious sentence? BTS's journey has been known for its transparency, authentic emotional closeness, and warm family spirit. But in recent months, something has changed. Not only from the members' interactions, but also from the way HYBE organizes every detail of their narrative. From promotional materials, a selection of footage shown to the public, to even the lyrics of the latest songs that are increasingly nuanced loss, exile, and longing. Even in the latest song released as part of Taehyung's solo project, there are very emotional lyrics. "I reached out my hand, but the shadow took your place. You looked back, but your eyes were not yours." The lyrics hint at the feeling of being abandoned by someone who was once very close. Fans are speculating, is this about Jungkook? Meanwhile, in Jungkook's solo project, he inserted a visual narrative in which he is seen alone in a white room, sitting with headphones on, staring blankly at a mirror. At the end of the clip, he dropped a picture frame, and this part was later cut out in the final version. The leaked full version shows glimpses of blurred photos of two people who are thought to be him and Taehyung. Why was that part removed? And why is it never explained? Question after question kept popping up. But no answer came from HYBE. There is no clarification. There is no official statement. All fell silent. Even more surprising, one of the senior stylists who once worked on the BTS project anonymously said in a closed podcast that the atmosphere between the two was very different during the final preparations. He even mentioned that there was a moment when Taehyung left the fitting room ahead of schedule and didn't come back. And the most disturbing thing, he said, was Jungkook's gaze when he saw the door that closed slowly after Taehyung left. It was no ordinary look, he said. It was a deep look of loss. All this reinforces the suspicion that something big has happened. Something that is not handled openly. Something too painful to reveal publicly. And perhaps something that HYBE herself was not ready to face. Then the question becomes sharper. Did HYBE deliberately silence this narrative for the sake of preserving the image of the group? Would they rather cover their wounds than let the army know the truth? Another source, who was also involved in the editing of the BTS documentary, claimed that he was instructed to equalize the duration of screen time between members and minimize frames that show closeness between two specific individuals. Without naming names, the public immediately pointed to Jungkook and Taehyung. Why is the closeness that has been celebrated is now neutralized? Does too much attention from the public make their relationship a target of corporate control? This speculation grew unstoppable when international fans discovered that in a behind-the-scenes Q&A session of the last concert, there was an audio section that sounded like a snippet of Taehyung's voice saying, "You didn't say goodbye properly." This sentence was never included in the official version. But the leaked footage went viral in certain communities. If that sentence is true, and it's addressed to Jungkook, then their breakup wasn't just a matter of schedule, it was a wound. Even more heartbreaking is that before Jungkook's departure abroad, there was only one public moment when the two were seen in the same room. But even in that moment, there was no direct interaction. Taehyung sat far away in the corner. Jungkook stood by the door. No smiles, no eye contact. And the saddest thing? There was no farewell speech in front of the camera. Aren't they usually very warm? The army began to conduct its own analysis. Some even compare their posture during a live performance. Jungkook, who used to stand near Taehyung, now stands at the opposite end of the stage more often. Taehyung, who used to never miss a moment nudging Jungkook's shoulder, now looks down more. All these signs make the public wonder more and more. Is their relationship just a victim of corporate expectations? Or is there a larger personal wound, which cannot be healed by time or a break in activity? Meanwhile, the army community began to split. Some believe this is just a phase. Some believe that this is a sign of the end of the closeness that they have been proud of. And even sadder, there are also those who began to blame certain parties, including HYBE, for not maintaining the emotional integrity of the members. But really, who can maintain relationships between people when pressure comes from all directions? Jungkook and Taehyung are not just idols.